Rock Solid Sports.
Pitch hit high in the air into left field, and that ball is gone. George Beck has given Tennessee the lead. Christian Scott, a leap at the fence. He robs a home run.
Sponsored by Fieldhouse Social, the modern sports bar next to campus at University Commons. FieldhouseSocial.com.
Ben Joyce kicks and delivers. Strike three.
Rock Solid Sports, the only show with a home field advantage for UT Athletics. Here's tonight's host.
Hello and welcome into the Wednesday night edition of WUTK's Rock Solid Sports. I will be joined by Jace here from Fieldhouse Social here in a minute, but we got a loaded show for y'all tonight. Tons of stuff to talk about. We got NBA play-in news that we will be discussing, of course. We got the Diamond Sports all on campus, and then Jonte Porter news. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. But real quick, Rock Solid Sports Wednesday night show is sponsored by Fieldhouse Social, 2525 University Commons Way, and thanks to them for their support. American craft food, beer, and cocktails, a 21-foot digital big screen TV indoors, and plenty more TVs throughout the restaurant, and a back patio. Open at 11 a.m. Wednesdays through Sundays, closed on Mondays, and open again on Tuesdays. So yeah, let's jump right into it. I'm flying solo here for a minute, so going to have to do a little bit of rambling, but that'll be all right by me. We're talking NBA first. So Lakers handle the late surge from the Pelicans and move on to the playoffs to take on the defending champs, the Denver Nuggets. And so that's back-to-back wins versus the Pelicans to elevate to the 7th seed. And the first question we're asking here is, are the Lakers playoff ready? And this one's a really difficult one just with how the Lakers have done in the past. Barring that 2020 championship. The Lakers, I'm a notorious Lakers hater, I can't lie, but this is actually the best season I've seen out of them in a while. The Western Conference is extremely deep right now, and even getting in through the play-in, I still think that's a great accomplishment, and this roster, it works a lot better than what they were doing last season, because what the Lakers kept doing wrong with their ownership and their front office is things wouldn't work out at the start of the season because it was all new guys on the team. And so every time they would just trade and they would refresh their group of guys. And that would never work out for them because by the deadline, it's an entirely new team. There's no chemistry there yet. And so they had to keep redeveloping that chemistry. This year, they actually stuck and stood pat at the trade deadline, and it's enabled this team to look a lot better going into this final stretch of the season. I mean, any team with LeBron on it is going to be a threat. That's never a question. And Anthony Davis, he stayed healthy this season. He's been the most healthy we've seen in a long time. And I really feel like the league has honestly forgotten about Anthony Davis at this point, just with how they got used to him getting injured quite frequently and just the time he spent off the court. But Anthony Davis is now a major key player once again, extremely good on defense, as we know, perennial defensive player of the year candidate, and just truly a guy that any team would die for. And LeBron, obviously, you don't have to say much about him, but it's some of those guys on the bench that are really moving the needle for me with the Lakers. I'll pull up some of their names here real quick, but guys like Rui Hachimura have really made this Lakers roster just that much deeper, just truly a much better team. I mean, there's guys like Rui Hachimura, Spencer Dinwiddie, giving you key minutes off the bench, especially Dinwiddie, just what he offers on the defensive end with his wingspan. Just a really great point guard. And, I mean, the guy looks and plays like a vintage player, just straight out of the 70s almost. But other guys off that bench, of course, and then also starters too. Austin Reeves, D'Angelo Russell, Jared Vanderbilt. He hasn't been that great for him this year, but guys like Gabe Vincent have really started to step up too. Christian Wood, this Lakers team is really, really deep. So I think they got a shot this year in the playoffs. But when looking at the Nuggets, there's a question too that's been asked. Should the Lakers have lost intentionally, so they could have played OKC instead of the Nuggets. And while I much rather would have played OKC than the Nuggets if I'm the Lakers, at the same time, you can't deliberately lose game in the playoffs when everyone's hungry. You can't take a game for granted. It's just not how you play the sport. It's not how it works. So I don't blame them for not intentionally taking, but because, I mean, you have to play them anyways at some point. But this Lakers team, honestly, I feel like they match up pretty horribly with the Nuggets. Just with a force like Jokic down low, Anthony Davis is going to have his work cut out for him. And it's going to be really hard for this team to have to play around him. And then also Jamal Murray, who plays great when it actually matters, contrary to a lot of players. But it's going to be a really good series, I think, regardless, just because LeBron has mentioned that he's thinking about retiring here pretty soon. So he's given it his all to try and win one last ring, especially a non-so-called Mickey Mouse ring outside of that NBA bubble. So it's a series I'm looking forward to for sure. But the Nuggets, I think, are the best team in this playoffs, just being defending champions. And with Jokic, I don't think that anyone can take that crown until they've been beaten. I just think that's how it works with this Nuggets team, because nothing has changed so significantly besides losing maybe a key role player here like Bruce Brown. I really think this Nuggets team is one of the strongest in the playoffs without a doubt. But the Pelicans, obviously still a little bit left to play for him here, potentially get in. Zion, he's injured. And so that's going to really hurt the Pelicans as they try and clinch that last playoff spot in the West. And it's going to be the Kings that the Pelicans are playing after the Kings took down, it's going to be Golden State that they're taking on, my bad. And welcome into the studio, Riley. We got Riley here with us. And we got some funny little headphones here. And yeah, so how you doing, Riley? We're talking about NBA playoffs, but it's currently just me.
Oh man, yeah, doing pretty good. Turned on the jets to get over here. Was doing a little quiz, and it took a lot longer than I was expecting, but made it here. And yeah, lots to talk about with the lot going on, man. You got the WNBA draft and NBA playoffs and baseball season, getting into the thick of that. So lot going on in the sports world right now.
Absolutely. I was just talking about the Lakers handling that late surge against the Pelicans and being able to make it into the NBA playoffs, and just how they're matching up against the Denver Nuggets. Any thoughts on that matchup in particular?
Yeah, absolutely. We've talked about it on the Fast Break podcast a couple times, where I do think the Lakers are one of the few teams that are going to give the Nuggets a run for their money. So it's a tough for the Nuggets to get matched up against them in round one. I mean, when you have the greatest player of all time, in my opinion, I mean, yeah, I know you disagree, but when you have, I can respect, but you can respect the opinion, yeah, right? One of, if not the greatest player of all time on a team, and certainly one of the players with the highest basketball IQ we've ever seen. It makes it that much more difficult to challenge a player like Jokic. Because Jokic is the unicorn. We've talked about that. We've talked about Jokic a million times. He is a one-of-one unique player. So when you have a player like LeBron with this huge basketball IQ, especially when he has a teammate like Anthony Davis that is able to challenge Jokic physically, it makes it that much more difficult for them to just do the let's just lean on Jokic thing and cruise through, 4 games. It's going to be very difficult for them to do that against this specific team. I think them getting the Lakers in round one is probably the worst outcome for them possible.
I think you're on something with that. I definitely think the Nuggets still have them handled with just the age of LeBron. I really think that despite him being incredible and still elite at this level, I think that his age has slowed him down at least a little bit. Just with the minutes he's been playing, and maybe in this playoffs he's going to be able to get back there on the court and play crazy minutes again. But it's always a question there with his age. And then Anthony Davis definitely is the game changer here with him just being so healthy this year. That's going to be the real difficulty for the Nuggets. But I still think that Jokic is still going to be able to have his way to a degree. And then Jamal Murray in games that matter.
Yeah, right.
He's always there.
Right, yeah. And it's going to be tough for them to get around the fact that you have you have a lot of different players there that are able to defend at a high level. That's probably the biggest strength of the Lakers is they have several defenders that are very good, but they had D'Lo, who's kind of had a surge recently, and I think that's going to give them a big boost here. Is the way D'Lo's been playing recently, and if Anthony Davis can avoid what we've seen from him in the past in the playoffs, which is these weird. He has a 40-point game and then a 2-point game. If he can avoid those type of performances from here on out, then I think Anthony Davis could certainly be a big piece in having the Lakers make a deep playoff run.
Absolutely. And now we got Jace with us from good old Fieldhouse Social. How you doing down there, buddy?
Holding it down, trying to set up for a giveaway tonight over here at Fieldhouse Social. So, if you're in and around the area, be sure to stop by Fieldhouse Social down on Commons Way right off of campus. You got a chance to win a 2-pack of tickets for Tennessee's baseball game against Western Carolina next Tuesday, April 23rd at 6 p.m. So if you're out and about, be sure to stop by and see us real quick.
That certainly seems like a special little opportunity there for some tickets. But, we've been talking about the Lakers. I know they're your team, so we'll let you talk at least a little bit about it. But I've been talking about this for about 10 minutes now, so we really should move on pretty quick to the Kings and Golden State.
Yeah. Lakers coming into this one, I think it was coming after that last regular season game. It really wasn't a question that I think they were going to come out swinging against New Orleans. Now, I think the Pelicans came out swinging pretty much very fast. But Lakers were able to overcome that. And then late in the game as well, after taking a big, almost 20-point lead, the Pelicans started clawing away. Zion, Williamson, and crew were really starting to roll. I think Zion ended with 44. He went out with an ankle injury. So an unfortunate event right there. But beyond that, I think the team played pretty well. I know Anthony Davis didn't have the greatest, shooting day from the field, but beyond that, I think on, the rebounding aspect, still grabbed 15 boards, which is what you need from him in that spot. He also had some big role minutes from a guy like Torian Prince off the bench. He brought in some good offense as well as some decent defense, and guys on the starting lineup like D'Lo and Austin Reeves, have been putting together work that can help sustain LeBron James in that offense. So I think rolling in, you get a Denver Nuggets team that's probably the deepest roster in the West. I personally think the Lakers have the second deepest roster in the West. So I think that matchup is better to take early while you're still hot and you still got some legs under you. I would not have wanted to see that team slip up and have to play a young and run and gun team like Oklahoma City.
Absolutely. And Kings Golden State, that was another fun one for sure.
Yes.
And now that shot at the 8 seed for the Kings playing against the Pelicans, and just how big was Murray stepping up without that production from Malik Monk, just off the bench, being able to step up, fill that role, shut down Klay Thompson, just doing everything right.
It was really big. I think the amount of points that he was putting up was huge, especially taking over, like you said, a game where Malik Monk's not out there and a team that's not going to have Kevin Huerter for the rest of the season. So I think being big like that in such a, win-or-go-home stakes game like that against a Warriors team that was really hot. It felt like they were going to be a team that you really didn't want to run into in the playoffs. So being able to take them out of the picture was huge, and without a big guy like Malik Monk was huge. But, Keegan Murray being able to be on the offensive side like that was just absolutely incredible to see, because you know what you're going to get on the offensive end with Domantas Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox. But beyond that, you're starting to reach a little bit without Malik Monk. Harrison Barnes is getting up there in age. So him being able to be a young catalyst in that offense was huge for the Kings last night.
Yeah, I think without Keegan Murray's contributions, they pretty easily lose that game, even with, someone like Klay going 0 for 10 or whatever it was. And, of course, that was the big storyline coming out of that game. The memes on Twitter have been hilarious. But to me, the bigger story is they put up 118 points. Only 14 of those came from their bench, the Kings. That's not sustainable in the playoffs. I think they try to if the bench puts up that same performance against the Pelicans, it might be a blowout. It's just the Warriors have been a pretty bad team all season, and they kind of just scraped into that play-in spot. The Kings, with their injuries, they've slid pretty far, and I think they have some very talented players that are going to be able to carry them in games like this against bad teams. But when you go up against a team like the Pelicans, which has, some of the better defenders in the league, and Zion Williamson, who's seemed to finally be coming into his own, it's not going to be sustainable. These 14 bench points, 204 from the starters. You're just not going to win games like that. It's a big question mark for the Kings right now, I think.
It's definitely on a lot of people's minds. I don't think that the Kings have that great of a chance of advancing. Even without the Pelicans having Zion Williamson, I just think that the Pelicans right now are a deeper team, and they have a lot more experience on their side. I will say it's really funny seeing Harrison Barnes knock out the Warriors dynasty, though.
Yeah, right.
A little bit of poetry there. But, the 76ers, they're going to be hosting the Heat for a chance to play the Knicks in round 1. How does Joel Embiid, being healthy, he's in the playoffs, how does this affect the play-in tournament, not only for Philly, but just every other team that's going to be looking at this matchup against Philly?
Yeah, I've talked about this before. I think the Sixers are an entirely different team when they have Joel Embiid in the court. I mean, they were, in that middle pack of teams all fighting for those middle seeds, and then Joel Embiid gets hurt and they just tank. And it's a tough scene for them, but I do think now that Joel Embiid is back, they do feel like one of the deeper teams in the league. And depth just means so much in the playoffs. So being able to get quality minutes out of your bench players, it's going to come up big here. And even against a team like the Heat with, Eric Spoelstra and, playoff Jimmy, are we going to see him start, tonight? But I don't think the Sixers are the same team that got them this seed, right? With Joel Embiid, they are a different team. And I think it's going to show tonight. I think they're going to handle the Heat. And I do think the winner or the loser of this one is going to beat whoever wins this 9-10 matchup between the Hawks and the Bulls. I don't see a way that these two teams are not the two teams that make the playoffs.
Yeah, I think what Joel Embiid does for that 76ers team, like you were saying, Riley, it's a completely different team. But we saw so much success from the 76ers squad early in the year. And Joel Embiid was averaging like 35 or 36 as well as 12 or 13 rebounds, on pace for another MVP season. And then as soon as he gets out, it feels like the wheels fall off the train, and the 76ers just don't look the same. But, ever since he's come back, I think at the start of last week, that team has really turned it around. They went on like a little 4 or 5 game win streak and put together some really fun efforts, even though Joel Embiid was on some limited minutes. So with him being full go, I think what he does is he revamps that offense, so it's not all on Tyrese Maxey. And I think he brings from the defensive end just a roaming presence that not too many guys in any league on either side of the league can handle. And I think that's going to be too much to overcome for the Heat tonight, even with playoff Jimmy and how well the Heat have been playing over the last few postseason stuff. I really think he's really going to change, or not really change, but I think he's really going to be able to compete and bring this team back to what it was this year, and give the Knicks a run for it if they can pull it out tonight.
Absolutely. I really think the 76ers are locked tonight, even with the Heat having playoff Jimmy, Coach Spo. I just think that the 76ers team, like you guys have said, it's so different with Embiid, but adding Embiid allows the other pieces that haven't necessarily had time to mesh, gives them a little bit more leeway. Guys like Kyle Lowry that are going to be playing key bench minutes. I really think that this changes the outlook for this team because there's so many different pieces on the 76ers team. And once they start clicking, which is going to be a lot easier for them once Embiid's on the court and distracting a lot of the pressure. There's guys like Mo Bamba, Batum, Covington's great defensive piece, very underrated guy in the league, just always been rock solid on D. Our very own Tobias Harris is going to be there and hopefully doing a lot better than he has lately because he has not looked like that bubble Tobias Harris that we once saw. And then Buddy Hield coming over from the Pacers, another massive ad that really stretches the floor for this 76ers team. and creates a lot more room for Embiid, but also allows his team to play in transition, which is going to help him out a lot because there's just so many more offensive options for this team that I just think they're built to win in the playoffs. And with Nick Nurse as the coach, I mean, great in-game guy. So I really think that this team is capable of winning it all, honestly, despite their seed. But on the other end of things, how can Miami potentially continue their miracle playoff runs that they've seemingly had every single year for the past couple?
I mean, it's going to come down to, will Jimmy Butler do what he's done every time and just play this hero ball and it just works? I mean, it's hard to quantify how it works through stats or anything like that. It just kind of happens. It's just playoff basketball and playoff Jimmy, whatever you want to call it. It just works for them. And I don't know how, but it does. So it's going to come down to, can that happen? Can, Eric Spoelstra continue to do the phenomenal coaching job that he does? Obviously, as many years as he's had in the league and as respected as he is among the coaches, it's going to be tough to, overpower a team like that, or outcoach a team like that, I should say. It's going to be tough to outcoach a team coached by Eric Spoelstra. So they should be well coached, and it's going to come down to, will their stars do what they have to do? And that's going to come down to Jimmy Butler playing great offensive basketball and Bam Adebayo playing good defensive basketball.
Yeah, the big one for me, like you said, if playoff Jimmy shows up, then absolutely the Heat will be able to compete. Now, if they can't get past the Sixers tonight, they're really going to be tested once again. They beat this team before. They beat the Boston Celtics in the playoffs recently. But honestly, this year feels like a different animal. But we know what show that the Heat can put on with Jimmy Butler as well as Eric Spoelstra. I think as long as the Heat have those two guys there, they're always going to be able to compete come playoff time. It always feels like they're in the playoffs. It always feels like they contend in the playoffs at that. I mean, this is a team that's been to, I think, 3 of the last 4 Eastern Conference Finals. Have put together some really fun groups to watch. Now, you're without a guy like Kyle Lowry. You're going to have to insert guys like Harry Rozier. You've got Tyler Hero coming off the bench. So you've got some ways and some lanes to switch things up, play different brands of basketball. But overall, I think you really are going to have to rely on Jimmy Butler like you have these last few postseasons if they really want to make a run here.
Absolutely. And kind of like you said, there's just a lot of tools in the toolkit for Coach Spo in this one. Just being able to pull from the bench and get different sizes out there that can play different styles of basketball when Jimmy's not on the court to give teams trouble so that when he's on the court, it's making a bigger difference. I really think that's going to be huge for this Heat team, but it really just boils down to Jimmy Butler. But with that, going to cut it to our first break. You're listening to Rock Solid Sports Wednesday night edition on WTK 90.3 The Rock.
For Rock Solid Sports for their support. American craft food, beer, and cocktails, plus a 25-foot big screen at University Commons Way. Fieldhouse Social welcomes sports fans and others alike to enjoy dishes like the citrus marinated chicken, grilled Faroe Island salmon, and smoked ribs. FieldhouseSocial.com or on Twitter and Facebook.
Volunteer Radio receives support from Tennessee Smokies Baseball, the AA Southern League affiliate of the Chicago Cubs, whose 2024 regular season schedule features 6-game homestands Tuesday through Sundays, now into September at Smoky Stadium in Kodak. Rock Solid Sports will have weekly Smokies updates. TheSmokiesBaseball.com, linked up at WUTKRadio.com.
The Rock thanks Cool Beans, 1817 Lake Avenue, 1 block south of the Strip, for sponsoring and hosting Monday night Rock Solid Sports broadcast at 7 p.m. Cool Beans is the campus headquarters for food, brews, pool, shots, darts, sports, and more fun. Tuesday night is team trivia night, and Thursday nights are for bingo. CoolBeansBar.com or their Facebook page for more info.
The Rock thanks the UT Athletic Department and Lady Vols 2024 softball team for their support. The Lady Vols' next home games at Sherry Parker Lee Stadium are against LSU Friday, April 19th at 6 p.m., Saturday at noon, and Sunday at 2 p.m. AllVols.com for general public tickets, and students get in with valid student ID. The Rock says, "Go Lady Vols!"
Volunteer Radio receives support from the Tennessee Smokies Baseball, the AA Southern League affiliate of the Chicago Cubs, whose 2024 regular season schedule features 6-game homestands Tuesday through Sundays, now into September at Smoky Stadium in Kodak. WTK's Rock Solid Sports will have weekly Smokies updates. TheSmokiesBaseball.com, and a link is at WTKRadio.com.
Knoxville, be sure to tune in Wednesday nights from 8 until 10 for The Alternative, featuring 2 hours of the best in Americana music from the station that first brought Knoxville music by bands from back in the alt country days, like Green on Red, the Blasters, the Jayhawks, Uncle Tupelo and Jason and the Scorchers, to 90s Americana like the B-Roys, Whiskey Town, Gillian Welch, Wilco, and others, to modern-day Americana musicians like Margot Price, Zach Bryan, Tyler Childers, Turnpike Troubadours, and Charlie Crockett. You'll also get classic Americana like Lucinda Williams, the Flying Burrito Brothers, and the Byrds. And there's local Americana by R.B. Morris, Cruz Contreras, Trisha Jean Brady, Adeem the Artist, and others. There's always Patsy Cline at 9 and chances to win Bliss gift cards and passes to upcoming Americana concerts in the area. So, if Americana music makes your musical clock tick-tock, tune in Wednesday nights at 8 for The Alternative. Sponsored by Void, Jig and Reel, Bliss, and Bliss Home. And only on 90.3 The Rock, UT's College of Rock.
Volunteer Radio remains on the air thanks to support from the UT Athletic Department. The 2024 baseball fall season runs February into May with games against SEC rivals Georgia, LSU, Missouri, and more at Lindsey Nelson Stadium. Allballs.com. Students need to show a valid ID at the gate for entrance. Tune into Rock Solid Sports for UT baseball coverage, and The Rock wishes Coach Vitello and the Baseballs good luck on the diamond this season.
Hello and welcome back to the Wednesday night edition of WTK's Rock Solid Sports. Segment 2, it's all about the diamond sports. Vol baseball completed its first SEC Series sweep of the season at home against LSU last weekend. Also crushed Bellarmine 20-5 on Tuesday night behind 6 home runs, that's 6, count them, to become the nation's leader in the category with 101. This weekend, number 4 Vols head to Lexington, taking on number 3 Kentucky, who is 14-1 in SEC play with 10 straight SEC wins. And yeah, it's going to be an electric series up there in Lexington. But what does this series in particular mean for the SEC East?
Yeah, it was a wild one, man. And to get your first series sweep of the season against the defending champs is certainly super impressive. I was shocked. I didn't think it was going to happen. I figured they were going to drop a game, but Griffin Hadley called it on last Friday's Rock Solid Sports edition. He was the one that went with all 3. He said they were going to get a sweep, and everybody else was like, "Nah, they'll get it." We each picked. We did. One person said they were going to win, or they were going to lose Friday and win the next 2. One person said they were going to win the first one, lose Saturday, win the Sunday, and then the last person said they were going to lose the first or win the first 2 and then lose on Sunday. And then Griffin was like, "Well, if you all took all those different combinations, I guess I got to go with a sweep." So he called it right, and yeah, I'm happy he did, because the Vols are becoming more and more impressive each time I watch them. It seems like they're really finding their groove here. And there have been some questions, I think. The question was never about the offense, right? And they're putting up historic numbers right now. I think they're on pace to lead the league in grand slams. I can't find the stat right now, but I think the most in a single season all time was 14 or 16 or something like that. The Vols have 10 right now, and they are halfway through the season. So
9 different players too hit those 10.
It's ridiculous. It's so difficult to put up offensive numbers like that, especially when some of the pitching talent we're seeing in college baseball is some of the best we've ever seen. So it's crazy to see them doing what they're doing offensively, and doing against LSU is not easy. And I mean, I forget who it was that said it. I want to say it was Ariel Antigua after the midweek before the LSU game said, they're defending champs for a reason. You don't win a national championship by accident. It's not a team you can overlook despite their bad starts this season. So for them to be able to go out there and get a sweep over someone who just won the College World Series, it's a difficult thing to do, and certainly a testament to how good this team really is.
Yeah, I think, going out there, like you said, Riley, and beating a team that's just coming off a national title is impressive on itself. I mean, even though you have to take away some of those key pieces, like a Dylan Cruz and like a Paul Skeens who went number 1 and number 2 in the MLB draft, that's still going to be an ultra-talented roster of both hitting and pitching. And we saw a great outing from Luke Holman for LSU on Saturday. Went 5 innings giving up a hit, and then eventually things boiled over and didn't hold up too much longer. But beyond that, I think the Vols played a very well-rounded series against the Tigers. They took it to them. One with, the long ball when they did, one with small ball when they did. So I think being able to roll that over and then continue to keep the bats hot against Bellarmine, a much listener. So it's going to be huge for rolling into Kentucky, who's oddly not had the most success, I guess you'd say, from the plate, but they've been able to pull out these wins. Nobody on their roster has more than 6 home runs on the year, which is beyond impressive for them to be able to sit at 14-1 in the SEC right now, sitting at 10 straight SEC wins as well. So being able to go in there and with probably the hottest bats in the country right now, top to bottom, and being able to take that chance to take on the number 1 ranked SEC team in conference play, I think it's going to be a huge matchup, and I think Kentucky jumping them into rankings will also feed that fire because, Kentucky coming into last week was ranked at like 9 or 10 or number 8, something like that. And for them to jump over the Vols, who had won all 4 games in the week, Kentucky lost their midweek game last week to Stanford. So that being something to add to the fire, I think it's bulletin board material for Vitello and the Vols. It should be a really, really fun one to shape out the SEC team.
I found the stat. Mm-hmm. It's Arizona State had 14 in 2003 over 68 games. Second was Oklahoma State in 1996 with 12 over 66 games. And then UCLA and Oklahoma State each had a season where they had 11. Tennessee has 10 through 37 games. So just a tad over halfway through the season, they're on pace to go for like 19 or 18, somewhere in that range. So just a phenomenal start for this offense.
And that would certainly be more than impressive and a great little feather in Vitello's already pretty full cap. But I'm really looking forward to this series like you're talking about, Jace. Kentucky, they jumped us. They lost to Stanford last week. We had a more impressive series sweep. It's bulletin board material, just like you said. And Coach Tony, Mr. Vitello, the man himself, he's going to be all over that. And this team's going to come into Lexington with a fire. And just with how Kentucky has played the past couple of weeks, just eking out those wins, I think it's going to be extremely hard for them to contend with the bats of the Vols. I just think that even if our pitching staff doesn't get the job done quite well, the bats are really hot right now, and Lexington doesn't have the bats to compete. So I really think that this is going to be a case scenario where the Vols are just trying to run away from whatever Kentucky's doing, and I think they're going to be able to do so with a little bit of room to spare. I think they'll drop one more than likely, but I really do think that they're going to win the series for sure.
I'm a little skeptical going into this one because Coach Vitello was talking about how Lexington, since they've redone their stadium, it is a pitcher's park now. It is one that benefits the defense, and that obviously bodes pretty poorly for the Vols, whose strength is their offense. So it's tough for them. It's going to be tough for them to go there. I forget who it was. Oh, it was Kavaris Tears last night said he doesn't like playing in Kentucky. He said it's always dreary and rainy, and actually might get some rain tomorrow or Friday, I think. So chance for rain during that game, but it's just a bad place to go. It's a poorly timed series to have away. Kentucky finally has kind of found their footing this year. A team that hasn't honestly changed all that much. They just kind of had a jump from last offseason to this offseason. Now, I mean, that can happen in baseball, right? Teams gel together and players kind of find their swing, and that's what's happening in Kentucky right now. And so it is certainly bulletin board material to have them jump the Vols despite a series sweep and a 20-5, thrashing of Bellarmine. It's not. It doesn't bode well for Kentucky in some ways, but I also am not super enthusiastic about going to play there for this series. Now, if this was in Knoxville, I would be ready to say sweep, sweep, sweep. Vols might just get the sweep here. But if the fact that it's in Kentucky gives me pause there, I think they more than likely, I do agree with you, drop one, maybe even two, especially since it is away and in these tightly ranked matchups where both teams are very good. You can pretty much count on there not being a sweep, especially given the circumstances. So I'm going to say the Vols do drop one this weekend, but win the next two.
Yeah, I think going into this weekend, one thing like that they're going to have to stop is their pitching from being overwhelming. They've got a few guys that are sitting around like a 2.5 ERA that have started 7-8 games so far. So they've had plenty of time to have that number jump up, but it really hasn't. So that's going to be a big question there. And like you said, Riley, it is very much a big ballpark. It benefits the defense so much just because, like you said, they revamped it back in, I think, 2019 or something like that, back when it opened. And it's now just a sprawling facility. It's a huge field. It's not going to bear well, especially if, like you said, we're expecting some rain up there on Friday, maybe even a little bit Saturday. So I think the mixture of that might not bode well. But we've seen this team, as of recent, especially this weekend against LSU, win tight games. That's something that Tennessee is not really used to doing. They're used to, putting up the big numbers, blowing teams out. I remember that 2022 team, that the average that they would score a game was sitting at about 10 runs, 9 to 10 runs, and they would only give up about 2.5 a game. So they were winning a bunch of games by 6, 7 runs. So I think them being able to add to their toolbox the ability to win close games, to win whenever your offense might not be the hottest yet. I think, defense being able to step up, as well as pitching being a big surprise. I think that's going to be something that can bode well for Tennessee. And speaking of pitching, going to need another big outing again from Drew Beam and guys like Xander Secrets on Sunday, just because, like you said, it might not be the highest scoring affair, but this team really does have a chance to really, put the pedal down on the SEC here. And, beyond that, it really shouldn't be, or I think the Vols should win. It really doesn't feel like Kentucky's slate up to this far as in game has matched up to Tennessee's in any way, shape, or form. So it should be an exciting one, but I think I would take Tennessee still, despite being on the road, to take at least 2 out of these 3.
Yeah, confidence in the Vols seemingly abundant right now, despite the pitcher's park. But yeah, it's going to be tight for sure, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Always fun when we get to beat the Wildcats. But on the flip side of things, let's go to the other side of the diamond. Lady Vols taking 2 out of 3 against Mississippi State in Stark Vegas to improve to 12-3 in SEC play. This weekend, they're playing host to none other than LSU, the team that the men took care of last weekend. So what must this Lady Vols team do to continue to just keep playing lights out and they've looked incredible so far this season. What's it going to take to keep it rolling? And is there really anyone else in the SEC that's going to be able to compete with them?
Right now, I don't think so. Right now, they are on just a ridiculous tear. They have been very, very good this season, and particularly coming off, the series win over Mississippi State, who another great team. And that was in Starkville, by the way. I want to say Mississippi State was ranked 16th. Lady Vols were 4th, I believe. Coming away with a series win, playing away again. I've said this before. In any of these diamond sports, you can almost count on losing an away game in a ranked matchup. Sometimes it's just playing an away game in SEC play. You can almost count on dropping a game, but particularly when that SEC team is ranked, it makes it that much more difficult to come away with a sweep. So them getting the or even a series win when you're playing away on the road against a ranked opponent, it can be very difficult. And the Lady Vols did that, and it's because of that phenomenal pitching in those 3 games against Mississippi State. They won one 7-3, won one 6-1, and then lost one 1-9. It was a tough one on Friday, but they bounced back on those following 2 days, only allowing 4 runs total between those 2 games. So they've got to continue to rely on that phenomenal pitching that they've gotten. Carlin Pickens, Peyton Gottschall, just had an incredible season. The 2 of them have been lights out, and you expected that coming into this season because they had started it last season. You just expect them to continue doing what they're doing, and you got to be perfect when you're playing SEC ball. You have to, otherwise you're going to drop games that you shouldn't be dropping. One bad night can snowball into another one, and then you just got to be on top of what you do. And Peyton Gottschall, Carlin Pickens, they've been phenomenal at doing that. They don't let themselves get flustered when they get into jams. They get runners on base, they stay calm, and they take care of it. And that I think is the difference with this team.
Yeah, I think overall, like you said, Riley, the big one here is keeping that pitching rolling. I mean, Carlin Pickens and Peyton Gottschall have just been lights out so far this year. I know they've had a couple of hiccups, including during that game down in Starkville that they lost 9-1. But beyond that little pitching rotation has, withstood some really great offenses. And I think one thing that would help them continue to roll that thing over are more big performances from players like Zeta Pooty. We haven't seen too much of her for like the first half of the year, and then she explodes for several home runs down in Starkville and is able to help the Lady Vols pull out some big time wins against the Bulldogs. So I think performances like hers are going to be huge. We haven't seen too much of Kiki Malloy recently. She's still sort of having a lingering injury right now. So wishing she will get back out there soon because she's just a monster now to stand on the offensive end. So whenever she gets back to, I guess, full health and back to the normal stuff, the offense should start seeing a little bit of a pickup. But, I think the mixture of, Zeta Pooty sort of showing up like she did in the postseason last year, as well as that pitching continuing to roll, even without pitchers like Ashley Rogers from the last several years. I think that's where we're really going to start seeing this Lady Vols team continue to pour on the dominance. And as for teams competing in the SEC with them, I really don't see too many. The one that I thought going into a couple of weeks ago was going to be Georgia. And Tennessee was able to take 2 out of 3 at home against a really good Georgia team. Some low-scoring affairs there, too, but like the baseball team, they found ways to win low-scoring matchups, and I think that's really going to help roll over and continue the dominance there for the Lady Vols. So it really feels like the only competition there is Georgia, and we saw what they did against Georgia, so would not be surprised if the Lady Vols can, continue to stretch out, I think, what is a 2-game lead right now in the SEC.
Absolutely. This Lady Vols team, just like you guys have said, the pitching staff is ridiculous. Really, this team has been just so incredible on the mound that the offense has not really had to do much in their victories, but the offense is still doing well for the most part. So really the key to continuing the success, I mean, I have no doubt that the pitching is going to keep it up. So as long as the offense continues to do at least somewhat well, I really think that this team's not going to run into many issues. But if they get those bats even hotter, this team is pretty unstoppable. It's definitely one of the best in the country by far, just with the pitching alone. It's truly incredible what's happening on that mound for the team. But with that, we're going to cut it to our final break of the hour. On the other side, we got some gambling to talk about. So make sure to stay tuned. Keep that dial right there. And you're listening to the Wednesday night edition, WTK 90.3 The Rock.
Volunteer Radio is supported by Fieldhouse Social, University Commons. Hosts the Wednesday night Rock Solid Sports broadcast at 7 p.m. Fieldhouse Social serves American craft food, beer, and cocktails. Featuring UTN Pro Sports on digital TVs around the restaurant 7 days a week from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. FieldhouseSocial.com and their Facebook page for news and more.
The Rock thanks the UT Athletic Department and the Vols 2024 baseball team for their support. Coach Vitello and the Vols' next home game at Lindsey Nelson Stadium is on Tuesday, April 23rd against Western Carolina at 6 p.m. Allvols.com for game tickets and info. Students get in with valid UT student ID. First come, first serve. The Rock says, go Baseballs.
Volunteer Radio remains on the air thanks to support from the UT Athletic Department. The 2024 baseball fall season runs February into May with games against SEC rivals Georgia, LSU, Missouri, and more at Lindsey Nelson Stadium. Allballs.com. Students need to show a valid ID at the gate before entrance. Tune into Rock Solid Sports for UT baseball coverage, and The Rock wishes Coach Vitello and the Baseballs good luck on the diamond this season.
The Rock thanks Cool Beans, 1817 Lake Avenue, 1 block south of the Strip, for sponsoring and hosting the Monday night Rock Solid Sports broadcast at 7 p.m. Cool Beans offers lunch daily with a full and late night menu and is the pre- and post-game on-campus location for Vols and Smokies baseball and Lady Vols softball, MLB, Pro Soccer, and the Preds on the big screens. 21 and over only, please. CoolBeansBar.com or their Facebook page for more info.
Volunteer Radio receives support from Tennessee Smokies Baseball, the AA Southern League affiliate of the Chicago Cubs, whose 2024 regular season schedule features 6-game homestands Tuesday through Sundays, now into September at Smokies Stadium in Kodak. WTK's Rock Solid Sports will have weekly Smokies updates. TheSmokiesBaseball.com, and a link is at WTKRadio.com.
Volunteer Radio receives support from Tennessee Smokies Baseball, the AA Southern League affiliate of the Chicago Cubs, whose 2024 regular season schedule features 6-game homestands Tuesday through Sundays, now into September at Smoky Stadium in Kodak. Rock Solid Sports will have weekly Smokies updates. TheSmokiesBaseball.com, linked up at WUTKRadio.com.
Knoxville, be sure to tune in Wednesday nights from 8 until 10 for The Alternative, featuring 2 hours of the best in Americana music from the station that first brought Knoxville music by bands from back in the alt country days, like Green on Red, the Blasters, the Jayhawks, Uncle Tupelo and Jason and the Scorchers, to 90s Americana like the B-Roys, Whiskey Town, Gillian Welch, Wilco, and others, to modern-day Americana musicians like Margot Price, Zach Bryan, Tyler Childers, Turnpike Troubadours, and Charlie Crockett. You'll also get classic Americana like Lucinda Williams, the Flying Burrito Brothers, and the Byrds, and there's local Americana by R.B. Morris, Cruz Contreras, Trisha Jean Brady, Adim the Artist, and others. There's always Patsy Cline at 9 and chances to win Bliss gift cards and passes to upcoming Americana concerts in the area. So, if Americana music makes your musical clock tick-tock, tune in Wednesday nights at 8 for The Alternative. Sponsored by Boyd's Chicken Grill, Bliss, and Bliss Home. And only on 90.3 The Rock, UT's College of Rock.
Welcome back. It's Wednesday night. We're getting crazy here in the studio. Absolutely insane, off the chain. You know how we do it. But yeah, we're going to be talking about Jonte Porter in this final segment. Lots to say currently about just the current state of sports gambling and how it's interfering with professional sports. But let's get the facts first. NBA has banned Toronto Raptors' Jonte Porter for providing bettors disclosed information and placing bets on NBA games while in the G League. The NBA's investigation found that Porter revealed information about his own health to a known sports bettor ahead of a March 20th game against the Sacramento Kings. Another bettor privy to the information placed an $80,000 same-game parlay bet that featured unders on Porter's stats and would win $1.1 million, according to the NBA. Porter played 3 minutes before leaving the game with an illness. The bet, which was placed at DraftKings, was not paid. So yeah, crazy story here coming out of the NBA. Just as a whole, how bad has the issue of just athlete gambling become in pro sports with the legalization of sports betting pretty much across America?
Yeah, I think I don't know. It's strange because you can't really at this point you've legalized it. It feels like it's here to stay. The money is in it. It's probably not going anywhere. But I think more and more athletes realize that they're gonna get caught. Like you see what happened with the whole Mizuhara situation with the Dodgers, and now this with Jonte Porter, and you think about all the ones that we've heard about in the NFL, Calvin Ridley, it was like 3 or 4 players that all got caught for the same thing. It was like betting on other sports while in a team facility. The leagues are really cracking down on it and like putting their foot down and saying that this is not okay. You cannot be as an athlete even gambling on other sports. They're diving in and really honing in on that. So it's tough. It's a tough situation because at this point, feels like it's here to stay. The money's in it. It's not going anywhere. But I think as these athletes realize that they're going to get caught, I think it's going to be something that we hear about maybe once a year. You know, some smaller name player He gets busted for, telling their friends that they're not going to play much tonight. I feel like that's kind of the direction it's taking. It is strange, though. It's strange, and it's definitely a sign of a new era in sports. It feels like that's happening in a lot of sports right now, whether it's college football or NBA basketball or whatever it is. But gambling is certainly becoming more and more prevalent. You're seeing it on the I want to say it's like League Pass or something. They're talking about having live gambling updates, like live stat updates for gambling and things like that. So it's crazy. It's a crazy situation.
Yeah, it's an interesting one too, because you see, like, even including this past NFL season, I would throw on wrestling on Sundays, and the first thing I see while the countdown is down to about a minute left is a DraftKings promo saying, if you enter this promo code and bet $5, you'll get $200 instant dollars in free bet. So I feel like just the promotion of sports betting has sort of led to this as well. I think it's way more, like you said, it's very accessible now. It's becoming legal in more and more states. More and more people are turning to it, just not only as something for fun, but something that they can also take serious as well. So I think the mixture of that too, plus the amount of money that people can make on that stuff, it's just something that these athletes can't overlook. And sometimes they get caught up in it. Like I said, we saw, Keyshawn Boutte, for former LSU wide receiver and on the Patriots. I think he put together a good some odd like 8,900 bets in his tenure at LSU, which is an absolute incredible amount. But I think overall the accessibility that these athletes have to do something like that is just uncanny as well. I mean, it's right on a phone. So, giving out tips and stuff, that's a little ridiculous. I don't think that takes away from integrity. I think, putting the hammer down that Adam Silver did put down, I think that's huge for, showing that not many people are going to take too much slack anymore. But overall, it has become such a huge problem. It shouldn't be a part of a game, but now, like you said, Riley, with it being so accessible, it's something that's really going to be hard to avoid for most organizations at this point.
Absolutely. It's a really complicated situation with just the widespread prevalence of sports gambling now. I mean, even in states where it's still legal, there are certainly plenty of ways to skirt those regulations and get around that people are utilizing. And they're really, especially at this college age, you see it so much around you, just guys really getting lost in the whole sports betting demon. But with it all, it's really interesting to see what they're doing with athletes. You mentioned the Shohei case, which that one I actually do believe Shohei's innocent, not just because I'm wearing a Dodgers hat.
No,
but,
I also think Shohei's innocent.
Yeah.
I just brought it up as another incident related to sports gambling.
Sure, but
not necessarily an athlete gambling, just a person that probably should not have been gambling on games.
Absolutely. And with the Shohei situation, if you haven't heard, he's been cleared by the FBI, and the FBI is not defending Rob Manfred in the MLB.
Right.
So you can be pretty safe on that one. But it's really interesting because there's a lot in this dilemma that I think about personally with these are adults. They're legal to sports bet. There's nothing legally wrong with them sports betting. However, it is an issue when they start to bet on their own sports, and just with information that they get, being athletes, being able to tell people things about how they're going to perform, tell people how other players on the team are going to perform. There's a lot of issues with that. And I mean, it is hard though, because I mean, obviously you're cheering for the bettors to beat Vegas. You don't want Vegas to win. So a guy having an insider feels like it levels the playing field a little bit, to be honest. But I mean, there is still the sanctity of the sport at stake, and that's much more important than sports betting. And unfortunately, sports has really begun to lean into the fact that it is an entertainment industry now, which I can appreciate. But at the same time, sports is an entertainment industry because it is a competition that is real. It's not a manufactured event. And I just feel leagues are becoming more and more about showmanship and leaning into sort of that WWE identity where the league is selling a product. It's not selling, well, it's not creating a competition to allow players to compete at their best in a safe environment. And so with sports betting, I really think that they need to establish rules for players. I think players should honestly be allowed to bet on other stuff, but there should be strong punishments for revealing team information or betting on their own sports. There's no room for that anywhere. But I mean, there's a lot to dislike about the NBA in that regard with what others have gotten away with and are still in the league. But how should other leagues really react to their athletes betting? There's leagues where it hasn't really happened yet, just across the U.S. We have yet to see a massive scandal with a massive player besides Shohei. So what's going to happen when that actually happens?
Yeah, it feels like the NFL has been pretty adamant about wanting nothing to do with it. Obviously the league is going to make their deals and things like that, but they want the players to have nothing to do with it. I think back, Nicholas Petit-Frere bet on, I want to say it was an NBA game at the Titans facility, not even betting on NFL or having any type of insider information. He just bet on it at the Titans facility, and he got 6 games for that. He got suspended for 6 games. So it's very clear to me that at the very least the NFL is taking it very seriously and does not want any situation where a big name player like that gets involved with gambling ever again, because the last time that happened with Calvin Ridley, I remember it was a firestorm on social media. People were very, very upset, and so I think it's pretty clear that the NBA wants nothing to do with it, and I think other leagues are going to be pretty clear as well. The first time one of these big scandals happens, the blowback is going to be like swift. It's going to be swift, and it's going to be pretty harsh punishment from the league.
Yeah, I think how leagues should react is, with a guy like Jonte Porter, it doesn't feel that big of a deal. But, with big name guys, like you said, Calvin Ridley, if you get a guy like that in trouble, that could, ruin some reputation in the league.
I mean,
Calvin
just
Ridley's
imagine if it was his brother. Imagine if it was Michael Porter.
He's been a wide receiver one for a little bit. And he's been able to put up some incredible seasons, not only with Atlanta, but last year at Jacksonville, and staring down the barrel of a few more years over with the Titans. So I think with things like that in mind, it's really hard to overlook. I think leagues really do need to cut down on just sports betting. I know Don said, players should be able to bet on other things outside of maybe their own sport, maybe some other sports, and I really do agree with that. But until we see how these athletes start reacting to that, it's really going to be hard to pull the trigger. So I think right now, I think that the NFL and other leagues should really start having an iron fist, sort of like a zero tolerance program. But beyond that, we do have a winner. I have drawn a winner for our giveaway for Tuesday night's baseball game, 2 tickets. Those are going to be going to Hillary Woods. So congratulations to her. I know we're about to round out. So congratulations, Hillary Woods. We will be in contact with you soon.
Right on. We got our winner. How about it? But yeah, no, it's just so interesting to see how society as a whole is responding to all this sports betting. It's just crazy. And I mean, it's really unfortunately an addiction that's taking over a lot of people's lives and leagues. The issue I have is they're supporting it by being advertised, gambling ads all the time. I mean, every single league has a DraftKings sponsorship basically. So hypocrites at the highest. Anyways, this has been the Wednesday night edition of Rock Solid Sports. Thank you all so much for listening, and stay tuned Friday for our next one.